This is the Scottish Club Rugby Podcast. The Scottish Club Rugby Podcast. With Stuart Cameron and Dale Clancy.
Hello and welcome to the 12th edition of the Scottish Club Rugby Podcast, and as always at the start of the show we give a big mention to the teams who have gone through the season unbeaten so far. That's Garnock from National 4, the only team still with a 100% record, including try-bonus points, and another victory for them at the weekend, making it 9 out of 9, and Ayr and Orkney, the only other clubs yet to taste defeat. Well, join me again is Dale Clancy. We'll be looking back at last Saturday's results and previewing this Saturday's matches, and as always we begin with the Premiership. Hawick 21, Marr 15, Heriots Blues 31, Kelso 32, Jedforest 7, Curry 31, Musselburgh 37, Edinburgh 35 and Selkirk 27, Hawks 23. So certainly on paper they all looked, apart from probably the Jed Curry one, they all looked like close games. But if we start with Hawick against Marr, that was far from a close game, but it ended up with Marr going home with a losing bonus.
Yeah, I think you look at the results that are there, and obviously it's been a really competitive weekend in the Premiership, which is great to see. And even the Jedforest result, it was it's not been one-way traffic down there. Obviously it's a kind of considerable defeat that they've suffered yet again, but it's not the 60 points that they suffered against Hawick earlier in the season. So there's been marked improvement in Jedforest over the last few weeks, but Hawick, yes, been able to again brush aside the team that defeated them, the only team to defeat them so far in probably not living memory from what I can remember. But yeah, 21 points to 15, great win for the Hawick boys. And again, Marr as well, getting back into it, being able to go back up the road with a point. It's going to be important in those top two positions because at the turn of the table, there's still a lot of rugby to be played. Curry have a game in hand, and if they build up momentum, they could put a bit of pressure on Curry, but it gives Hawick a little bit of daylight at the top.
It was a very competitive first half, 10-9 in fact they went in at the break. Colin Sturgeon 3 penalties, and of course Colin, you can't give him a chance at all because he got 5 of them in all, including one right at the death, which is obviously the one that gave him the bonus point. But lots and lots of uncharacteristic errors. I mean, could easily have been 40-50 points, so to see it end up at 21-15, quite a surprise.
Yeah, but I think that just looking at the balance of the way that fixture went, I think it's remarkable that Marr could only score kickable penalties against Hawick, and that's something that changed from the previous game. Like obviously up at Troon, I'd said they've had their cage rattled, and I think that the reaction has been phenomenal from that side because they went through last season undefeated, and then coming to this campaign they get beaten by a near rival. So to not score any tries is quite a good return for Hawick to be so formidable in defence. So sometimes these uncharacteristic errors just become from defensive pressure, and certainly on Saturday defence won, and Hawick were able to accumulate more points.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Hawick's defence were absolutely awesome. Not many will stop Marr from actually getting over the try line, that's for sure. Musselburgh Edinburgh was an interesting one as well. It looked, for all intents and purposes, that Edinburgh were going to win that, and then Musselburgh managed to get over the line 37-35 and successfully defend the Bill McLaren Shield, and that of course was off the back of the big Kelso loss the week before.
Yeah, I think we said about the Premiership at the last week's programme. There was a few games in there that were important for some teams to win to maintain that pressure, and I think looking at the balance of stuff, Musselburgh have been the only real team to really make last weekend count. A good win against a close rival, and backs to the wall victory, able to come back from a deficit to snatch the victory there, and it keeps the pressure on those top 4 positions. I think those places 3 and 4 in this Premiership campaign are going to be right down to the wire.
Yeah, and Kelso of course against Heriots Blues, only 1 point in it. It was a draw the last time, so over 160 minutes they've only got 1 point between them.
Yeah, that's a remarkable victory, and I think it was something else that we said last week. Was in terms of that game, it was probably one that Heriots needed to win more than what Kelso did. If Kelso win that, which they have, and it was a cracking game from what I can see in the reports, Kelso have almost just nudged their way and got their elbows out into a top 4 race, and it's still a lot of rugby to be played, but if they go on a roll now, they could really upset the apple cart, because there's teams in there that aren't really able to build that momentum. You see Aki's not able to pick up the win against Musselburgh. Musselburgh have been defeated as well. Those teams are not able to get that run of consistency, and you wonder now if Kelso are starting to settle to life in the Premiership.
Selkirk against Hawks, that's the game that you actually went along to have a look at, and another exciting one there.
Yeah, it was. I was fortunate enough to actually watch it as a punter for a change, which was great. And I just live along the road from Philip Hawke after moving a few years ago, so it's a really welcoming club. I love going down and watching the games, and it was at the end when Callum Anderson scored the last minute winning try that I actually punched air a little bit, which I probably shouldn't be saying in a podcast when I'm meant to be covering rugby, but I'm certainly not a Selkirk fan as such, but for that little moment it was exciting to watch. And I think Callum Anderson's a really classy player. I really like him at 15. You do wonder if with the district stuff on the horizon, you put a couple of better players round about him, I think he'd be a really steady hand at fullback. So great that he got the try at the end. His performance all round was really good. There were scrum penalties in there that could have turned the game. The narrative of that game was really interesting, but Selkirk able to get over the line in the end.
So how does that leave the league table? Well, Hawick at the top at 46 points. In second place, Marr 42, so a little bit of distance between them now. Curry move up to third, 37 points for them. They still have a game in hand, don't forget. Edinburgh in fourth position, back into the top four for them, despite losing. 36 points now. Musselburgh in fifth on 34. Kelso have 30 points now, which is not a bad return at all for their 11 games. They're in sixth. Herits Blues slipped to seventh with 29. Glasgow Hawks in eighth, 22. Selkirk in ninth position with 20 points, having got 5 against Glasgow Hawks on Saturday. And Jedforest sadly at the bottom still with just those 3 try bonus points, and now 17 points adrift from Selkirk.
Don't take any joy in actually speaking about the way that Jed are in the table, so the figures say it for themselves. But obviously the Selkirk victory gives a bit of daylight at the bottom. It was a good performance, nudges them a little bit closer to Hawks in the league, and I think it really takes the wind out of Hawks' sails for that race to the top 4. But you look at those teams from 3rd down to 7th, and there's going to be so many interesting games from now until the end of the season. A lot of twists and turns coming, because I still don't know what the makeup is going to be of that top 4. I think I'm pretty settled on the top 2 certainly, but yeah, definitely the 3 and 4 are still up for grabs.
Well, this week it's derby time again. Curry at home to Musselburgh first of all.
Yeah, that's you would look at that and you think that if Curry are really serious about trying to finally get that Premiership title in a playoff, they need to be winning this game, because another defeat just keeps everybody that little bit tighter, and the margins are going to be that much smaller come the end of the season. So at home at Millennium, really formidable place to go for any team, but Musselburgh go into it with a little bit of confidence. I think that that derby win last week against a side where they've been able to come back and snatch the victory puts a little bit of a spring in their step, and that's something that's from Musselburgh last season, you'd have been looking at that game and going, well, there's only one result happening here. This is a different Musselburgh side, so it's going to be intriguing.
Well, over the past few years, we haven't been seeing too many Curry versus Musselburgh derbies, but certainly we have been seeing a lot of Edinburgh Accies against Herits Blues matches over the years, going back a couple of centuries, in fact. 4th versus 7th at the moment, but again, that means nothing really when these two clash.
Yeah, I think Heriots were, again, we've spoken about it a couple of times, that last season they weren't really hitting their straps, and then went to Rayburn Place and were able to turn over Edinburgh Accies on their own field. So, there's nothing to say that won't happen again, and it's another important game in the race for the top 4. Both sides need to win. There's no getting away from the fact that these are the games you want to be cutting your opposition's throat, and it's a chance for either of these sides to get a little bit of a buffer between each other, because off the back of a defeat last week for both of these teams, in tight games, it's how they react and what the confidence will be like in those camps.
Well, on to the 2 border derbies, starting with Jedforest against Selkirk. We're going to hear from both coaches, starting with Jed's David Grieve, immediately followed by Sesh Henderson.
We have to win this week, and just winning's not good enough. I think we've got to go chasing bonus points, so we maybe have to take a few risks, but that's our aim this week, is to win as well as we can with a bonus point, hopefully. It's an uphill task now, but we've just got to keep trying, we've got to keep playing. We just have to stay positive, and the points are there to be played for. Musselburgh last year, everybody wrote a name off, they kind of produced a miracle, and to be fair, we kind of need a miracle as well. So nobody's given up. Training's actually been not too bad past few weeks. Numbers wise, it's been good. I give a lot of the senior players a bit of credit. They've kind of stepped up, they've took a bit more responsibility, and it's getting there. It's a little bit positive, so that's one good thing for us now. We need everyone in the town that plays rugby to come down and help us out. Like, I don't know the reasons. Everyone's got a reason, but we just need more help down here. We need more players. Better training sessions, because they're not going to affect. Like, if you get more people down, better atmosphere, and we just need that at the moment. Like, everyone's got to kind of pull together. We've got to try and put at least 60 minutes together, and I think we'll be on with a shout. Like, I think we have to give all the boys a lot of credit. Like, a lot of them, they've got various reasons why they can't train. A lot of them have got young families and moving house and new jobs, but every time we need them, they come out and play for us, and we can't criticise their boys. Like, we'd be lost without them. Like, this week, like, we have to attack them. We've got no choice. We have to go out there and attack them. It doesn't matter what the conditions are. We just have to play positive rugby. We kind of talk about we're only performing for a half. If we feel like if we perform 50 minutes, 60 minutes and build it up, we'll win games. But it's kind of easier said than done, because every team's kind of in their stride, and I still feel we're trying to find our stride at the moment. Like, you look at like Jamie Ferguson, for example. He went from hooker to back row. He played at centre at one point against Selkirk, and now he's playing loose head prop. You know, he's doing really well there. And you look at like Hamish Stenhouse, he's only 18. He's kind of came into the back row and he's looked all right. And obviously kind of Mark Glenn, like, he's kind of been a standout for us. He's had a wee knock on the shoulder, like, so he'll get a bit of treatment this week, and hopefully he's okay for the weekend. If we want to stay up, and we've got no other choice, it's got to start on Saturday.
The Glasgow Hawks game was a big game for us at home. I was delighted that we stayed in the fight. Really pleasing on some of the solid defensive sets we had, and one in particular with 20 phases that we defended really well. I think that was a momentum change in one of them, because then we just had one opportunity, and we only got one opportunity, and we scored from it just near the end of the game. So it was a massive 5 points for us. We'll take a lot of belief from that victory. And we'll need it again against Jed on Saturday. It's another big league game for us. Border battle as well. So, what the type of these games will bring. But we've just got to concentrate on what we in our performance, and no get too enrolled in the border battle type stuff. But I know it's difficult to say, but we just need to think about our performance, our attack, and our defence. And hopefully we do enough to get over the line again this week, and then. If we do that, then that puts us back into the pack again. That's where we want to be. What we're competing in the pack above us, week in, week out. It gives us real momentum. But again, easy to say. We just need to go out on Saturday and put a massive, accurate, physical performance in, and hopefully the scoreline goes our way.
Well, we covered this one earlier in the season when it was played at Philip Hawk, and there were 100 points scored. Selkirk winning 65-35. Kind of rewrote the whole essence of a border derby, that one, didn't it? Because we were talking about turgid, horrible matches with 6-3 scorelines, and then it was 65-35.
Yeah, they must be the only games I do for you, because I'm back this weekend. So it's I think that almost turned me into a horse commentator, because it was that fast flowing and it was open, and but it was a good game. I think in that game specifically, Jedforest were really, really good up front, and they were direct, and they were causing a lot of trouble for Selkirk in defence. It was taking 2 or 3 bodies to get them down. They just weren't able to get the width. They weren't able to really test them out wide. So when Selkirk turned the ball over, they had a lot of good playmakers that were kicking them into positions. Callum Anderson being one, Aaron McComb was one. I think young Cam Eason was playing in that game as well. So they had 3 kickers on the park that were just picking, being able to cover the backfield and then put them in the right positions. So Jed ran out of puff eventually. And I think that's what they're alluding to there, is being able to stay in the fight a little bit longer. And as the season progresses, you get more fitness, you get more energy. And they'll be hoping on this occasion, especially being at home, they'll be able to have a little bit more legs. And the 60-minute mark is probably quite a good one, because you then just run off instinct and adrenaline for the last 20. But they need to make sure on that hour mark that they're still in the fight. But, it's a game that's a lot riding on it. If Jedforest can't get a victory, that is them pretty much condemned to play National 1 next year. I think we can't look away from that, because when you look at the fixture running now, you look to see where those wins are coming, and this is one of those games that you look at and you think this is probably where a win should be coming for Jedforest. So, Selkirk going into the victory over a team above them. I don't think getting back into the pack is, it's a good to have a target for that, but their season is almost spent. It's a matter of trying to keep Jed further away from them and just trying to build towards next year, because they can't realistically get into the playoffs. But it's a border derby. Jed have everything to lose here, and they'll just be chucking caution to the wind. Listening to them, it's going to be a great game.
Certainly is, and we'll be there at Riverside Park for this one, for full live commentary. And if we're as entertained as we were at the last encounter between these two, then we'll certainly be happy enough with that. I don't think it's going to be a 6-3 game this. Remember, we start on air at Rugby Radio at 1:30. Just tune in via the website at rugbyradio.co.uk, and you can click and listen from there, with 3.5 hours of live rugby covering all 5 divisions in club rugby across Scotland. Well, the other border derby is Kelso versus Hawick. We've had commentary the last 2 weeks involving Hawick, but our reporter David Ferguson will be bringing his popcorn along to that one. Let's hear from Hawick head coach Matty Douglas and first Kelso director of rugby Neil Hinnigan.
This weekend we welcome Scottish champions Hawick to Poynter Park. It'll be a really big challenge for the boys. Obviously at Mansfield earlier in the season we were on the end of a heavy defeat, and obviously that stung a little bit. Trying to make amends for that. Hawick will be coming down with their usual confidence, and their league form speaks for itself. I think that's 9 on the bounce they've went, or something along those lines. So they are a formidable outfit, there's no doubt about it. A very physical team, well drilled, so we're going to have to be at our very, very, very best to get something from the game. Last weekend we had a good result away at Heriots, finally got our first away win. One we deserved through character. The boys probably didn't play their best first half performance, and we made a lot of sort of individual errors at times and a few bad decisions, and it just didn't really come together for us. But we were actually defending pretty well. Our discipline was good, but it took us till the last sort of 20-25 minutes to really get a hold of the game, and once we got into it in a big way we just kept going, and in the end we managed to steal it at the death. And Heriots probably played as good a game as they've played for a little while, and they maybe deserved a win as well. So it was that tight. That's 2 games against Heriots, and only 1 point over the 2 games has separated us. So it's been a good tussle with them home and away. So that's built a bit of confidence now. But this week, looking at Hawick, we have quite a lot of unavailability, and obviously Bruce McNeil's still struggling as well. So it could be a bit of a reshuffle, but we'll see what happens. Try and get the best team we can on the park.
Obviously, looking and reflecting back to last week's result, really happy with what we came away with last weekend. It was a top of the table clash, and look, probably pressure was on us a little bit, having what had happened at Troon the second game of the season, and look, Marr were a point behind us. They were flying high, and I think for us to put in that sort of performance that we did kind of shows where the mentality of the boys are this season. I think defensively was the best defensive effort we've had all season. I thought the amount of dominant hits that we were putting in, the defensive sets that we had was second to none, and we just had a bit of hunger in our defence this week. And as a coach, is always pleasing to see, and a lot of players in that side stood up on Saturday, and I think special mention to Connor Sutherland, who would be getting close to double figures for the dominant hits that he put in, and credit, got man of the match and offside line man of the match. So look, we're in a good place, and if there was a little frustration, it would be the chances that we left out on the park, and we covered that on Tuesday night. The players, they're not silly. They knew that they had scuppered a few chances in that 22, but it was a positive chat, and look, I'd be a little bit more worried if we weren't creating opportunities, but I think we had around 13 entries into the 22 the whole game, and converting 4 times some sort of points off of that probably should be more, and I think definitely can be more. But in comparison, Marr had 5 entries into 22 the whole game, and look, we gave them 12 points for high tackles as well. Colin Sturgeon was accurate with a boot, and we probably kicked ourselves in the foot at times. But look, we're in a good place. We played some solid stuff, and we move into a border derby this week against a Kelso side who have won 3 on the bounce. They're a extremely tough side to beat at Poynter, and look, I think we're not taking this lightly. I've got a lot of respect for Bruce and Kev, and Eki Hinnigan for what they've done at the club, and I think they've got a group of players there that are playing for the jersey. So look, we're under no illusion and what they'll bring. Big solid pack, they've got an exciting back line, and we're going to have to be ready for it. If we want to come away with any sort of points, we're going to have to be at our best and back up last week's home performance, which we can if we get our part right, and we bring the sort of game structure and a bit of game plan that I know we can execute, then look, we're a hard team to beat, but we're going to have to do the basics first. We're going to have to win the contact area, we're going to have to win the set piece, we're going to have to win the gain line, and it's one that I'm excited for this weekend. Hawick's not played at Poinder since 2015. I remember playing in a Scottish Cup quarter final there, and I'm not sure if we've played there since. So tough place, but look, for us, we've got another strong squad to pick from this week. No real injuries from last Saturday, so we're looking forward to it, and look, we'll give it our best crack to overcome a tough Kelso side at Poinder.
Well, he said it himself, defence wins matches.
Yeah, definitely. And Hawick have been, attacking wise, have been one of the most physical teams in the division, and over the last few years, and it shows you there against Marr, the defence has got them in a tight game, has been able to just stop them getting over the whitewash. A converted try, if Marr take one of their opportunities, Marr take the win. But the fact that Hawick have been able to hold them out, and also at times, in the vital times, been able to hold their discipline, has meant that they've been able to get away with the victory. But that just puts them in a good position. The games have been tight. They both won each, and I think that's the importance of home advantage. It's shown already. So when it comes to the playoffs, defensively, Hawick really strong at home there. But come the end of the season, it'll be intriguing to see what kind of fixture we end up with if they do make the final.
And when they get the defence and the attack working together, well, we've seen already what can happen. 61-0 against Jed, 61-7 the last time against Kelso. It's a depleted Kelso side this time. It is at Poinder Park there. I'm pretty sure it's not going to be 61-7 on Saturday.
Yeah, I don't think it will be. I think the difficulty that Kelso are going to face is the fact that I think it was Andrew Mitchell's try I watched back from the weekend, and the footwork from Lee Armstrong, and just the link-up play, how they can turn defence into attack so quickly, moving the target, spreading the field. Like they've almost got a bit of everything. They're essentially amateur rugby players, but they're top quality amateur rugby players, and they've got a bit of everything on the field. They've got a really strong scrum. They've got an abundance of talent at hooker, so their set piece is always strong. They can score from their own 22. If they're under a little bit of pressure, they can turn the ball over, shift it, break a few challenges. They're in behind a scramble defence, and that's where they punish you. So Kelso, with changing personnel, they're going to have to adapt to that pretty quickly and make sure that they shut down Hawick at source. That's what Marr wanted to do. Stop them getting ahead of steam, shut them down at source, and they just weren't able to at the vital times in that game. So it's going to be an interesting game because of the changes of personnel. I just think with Kelso at home, yeah, we won't see that one-sided scoreline that was seen earlier on in the season. That was a baptism of fire for the Kelso team, you feel. So they're well versed now. They know the level that they're meant to expect, and I don't think that matters if there's some players going to be dropping out. Yes, you lose some quality, but the level of expectation has been set for that club.
Hawick, of course, have done really well against Kelso in the first game, really well against Jedforest as well. Selkirk, though, over the past few years, they seem to have they know how to play against Hawick.
Yeah, they do. They've been the sticky team in the borders for Hawick. The draws at the start of last season, I think they defeated them the year before, or there was a fixture in there where Selkirk particularly weren't playing well and were able to have a really close game against Hawick. So yeah, Selkirk have been the bogey team, but Kelso are now in the Premiership. They're at the top table of Scottish Rugby. They've had a really good start to the season, as you say before, 30 points accumulated after 11 games. They've lost less games than some teams above them. So those two draws, they've been important draws for them. They could almost be, the thing that separates them come the end of the season, but they're in the conversation. And if you think about a bit of progress from National 1 going into the Premiership, if you were chatting to Big Eck and going, look, at the turn, there's a chance you're going to be in contention for the playoffs, you'd bite your hand off. And that's what they are. They're there. We're chatting about Kelso realistically being in the playoffs. If they could spring a surprise, that would put down a marker for the rest of the division.
Well, we've spoken about a couple of capital derbies in Edinburgh, a couple of border derbies. What about the West Coast derby at Fullerton Park, 2nd against 8th? We can get the words from both camps now. Kenny Diffenthal is on holiday back in South Africa, so this week we hear from Marr's Stephen Adair, and then Hawks head coach Andy Hill.
Training this week has been focusing on the parts of the game against Hawick on Saturday where we thought we were poor. We had an open and honest conversation with the guys after it. On the back of that game, we need to give all credit to Hawick though. They were the better team and they deserved the win. However, we know that if we want to be in the playoffs at year end, that we can't have another performance like that. We need to be more accurate, get better urgency and execute our game plan a whole lot better than we did. Hawks this week it's going to be a massive game. It's going to be a big physical battle. Andy and his team, we know what they're like. They've done their homework on us. I would say their position in the league doesn't really justify them as a team. We know the threats that they pose. They have a big physical pack. Their backline's well drilled. So this will be a huge game. It's also got the added bonus of being the West Coast derby. So we know that we need to front up on that. We also need to make sure that we execute what we practice during the week, and our discipline needs to be at 100% if we're looking to come on the right side of the scoreline on Saturday.
Saturday was a particularly hard result to take against Selkirk. We obviously came out the wrong side of the result, and we were probably in front for, I would say, the best part of 75 to 70 minutes of that game, and we somehow come out losing the game, and that's kind of been a bit of a story against Selkirk as of recent, other than the game where we comprehensively won at the start of the season. The other three games have probably, across the course of the 240 minutes, I reckon we've probably been in front for about 200 minutes of that, and we've lost all three games, and Saturday was indicative of that. We had the control part, whereby when the ball was kicked to us with 2 minutes to go, we managed to field that kick, and with that all we need to do is maintain possession and kick the ball down there, and either ask Selkirk to try and score from 70-80 metres out, and instead we give them a line out 10 metres out from our own line, and they managed to have a good bit of playing even there with numbers up, and we don't really finish off the tackles to try and make sure that they don't get the offload away and score. But credit to Selkirk, at the end of the day it's the result that matters, and they came out the better side of that. This week we obviously take on Marr down at Fullerton. We are totally aware of how important and how big a game that is going to be for us. It's something that we've never done. We've never won down at Fullerton since I've been in charge. Even when I was coaching the Premiership, I know we lost when we went down there. Saturday will be an interesting game for us to go and see where we're at. There are a few changes to the squad. There's a few guys that have finished their long-term injury replacements for the futures. Craig Nolan and Callum Ferry, they'll come back into the squad. Ewan Muirhead has been released as part of Boroughmuir Bears, so he's obviously a player that we know well, having played with us last year. He'll come into the squad as well, and Eric Davey in the next couple of weeks will no doubt come into the squad as well, having been with us last year, and once the final finishes with County at the weekend. But this week we're without, from the looks of it, Stephen Leckie. He's going to be out with a broken rib he suffered against Selkirk. Lewis Stewart is having to work this weekend. Ryan Howie, that started at 7 at the weekend, sustained a concussion, so he's out. The other one was Paul Cairncross, is 50-50 at the moment with a dead calf, to see whether or not he'll manage to pull through. So it's going to ask a lot of the squad. It's going to give guys an opportunity to try and come back into the squad. Some guys to try and maintain positions in that squad as well, because these guys coming back in will obviously be looking to try and get their spot back. But it gives guys an opportunity. The guys who have been actually wanting to see how they're going to cope under a lot of pressure this weekend at Marr, because we know the type of rugby they play. They're going to be physical. They're going to be up front and confrontational with us, so we need to pick a squad that's going to obviously try and combat that, and obviously still be able to play the brand of rugby that we know, whereby if we play it, we know we'll cause Marr problems, as we did that and should have come out the right end of the result in the first part of the season. But kind of the story of our season so far, we've just not managed to finish games off. We've not managed to sustain a long enough period of time where we've been on top to really run away with a game or come out the right side of some of these really close results. So that's what we're going to have to try and do this weekend against Marr.
Andy Hill, and before that Stephen Adair making his debut on Rugby Radio. At Belgrade, it was a pretty close match. Marr just getting over the line there, and I guess it'll be pretty tight this week. Yeah,
it'll be another tight game. It's funny with Hawks. I just think that obviously they speak about the team that they have to kind of change their kind of face and make up of their team every single year because of the player transfer and students coming to the area and the way that their kind of club operates. They manage to get some big boys every single time. They're always a big team. I was watching them at Philippock at the weekend, and they've got a really, really big pack. I had a really big lad in the wing as well. He scored a great try. It was a really well worked try. A little chip over, bounced up nicely. Good footwork from the winger, and they just have that strong side. They've got a really big team, so that's going to be a little bit of a contrast. They're going to conflict styles with Marr because they're pretty heavy up front as well, like really good artillery up front. I just think Marr just have a little bit more creativity behind the scrum. So, Andy Hill's mentioning there how difficult it's going to be, to go to Fullerton and pick up the victory. He can't recall a victory in the Premiership against Marr on their patch. So he knows what they need to do, and they need to bounce back from that defeat against Selkirk at the weekend. But Marr as well, they'll be licking their wounds from their defeat, and they'll be wanting a reaction. So another attritional battle. It's interesting to hear, though, the conversation there about some of the Super Series players returning back. So some of these teams' fortunes and what have you, they'll start to change, and they'll put a different complex in the league, which sometimes is slightly disappointing. But it's interesting to see some of these players coming back, especially some of the young futures players that you're hearing there. They just need to be playing rugby with some older heads, I feel. Let's have a look at National 1 then, and the results from last week. Ayr 40, Biggar 22, Dundee 38, Glasgow Ackies 47, GHA 22, Gala 42, GHK 17, Melrose 32, and Watsonians 27, Highland 17. A lot to talk about there. Ayr marching on again, still unbeaten, and Watsonians beating Highland, and crucially that gap at the top has increased from 6 points to 11. Yeah, that's a big weekend in National 1, and I think it's almost been, we're just watching kind of Ayr skip off into the sunshine back to the Premiership and do it with a bit of class as well. Obviously, another weekend where they've put on a lot of points. They have conceded some, so they're not bulletproof, but they're still able to get the win, and that's the thing. And we did say about Highland, how are they going to be with the consistency on the road, and it's now been something that's probably been their undoing, is a defeat against Watsonians on the road at Marrside in a place where they probably would have fancied their chances. I think they've probably travelled to more difficult places this season and put in better performances, but 27 points to 17, they don't leave with anything, and that means that Ayr get a nice 5 point steal on them this weekend and put a big bit of daylight at the top of the league. Both, of course, have still got to beat each other at home and away, but Highland now have to do the double, you would think, and make sure they don't slip up again, because if Ayr were hot favourites before last weekend to get promoted, then they're pretty volcanic this week. We were saying about the fact that if they were able to keep that consistency towards the end of the season, we've kind of got that 10-point game. The great thing about rugby is that it's not like you just get 3 points and the other team get nothing. I think just you can still salvage something from the game. So, it might have only been a 4-point turnaround in the end. They might have been able to steal that off of Ayr. But how it's happened is the fact that they've put a big cushion. They realistically have to go on a really impressive run from now until the end of the season. They've got to defeat Ayr twice, and they probably have to hope that not only do they steal points off them in those games, they slip up somewhere else. I just don't see it happening. Gala and Melrose both getting wins in Glasgow. That's not something you hear that often, and that's 3 victories on the bounce for both of them at the moment, sitting up 4th and 5th. Yeah, good victories as well on the road, especially for Gala. I think they've blown a bit hot and cold, and against a team like GHA, they're almost in the same boat. They've certainly not set the heather alight this season. We're coming down from the Premiership, so good wins on the road for both of those sides, and it's almost, you just keep an eye on the results, and they're interesting fixtures, but not a lot to play for in the middle of that table, even though it's at the halfway stage. And Dundee scoring 38 points against Glasgow Ackies. Not many teams have done that this season, but Ackies back to their high-scoring best again. Yeah, Ackies, they've demonstrated that they're able to score points and score tries, but from a Dundee point of view, at least if they're getting defeated, and on a weekend where GHK were unable to pick up anything, Dundee able to pick up a bonus point. And the league table has Ayr at the top, 10 out of 10, 48 points. Highland in second on 37. Glasgow Ackies in third, 33. Melrose just 1 point behind them now with 32 points in fourth place. Gala in fifth. They're on 28 points. GHA dropped to 6th, 25 for them. Watsonians in 7th, 24 for them. Biggar in 8th place with 17. Dundee also have 17 in 9th. And GHK bringing up the rear with 2 wins out of 11. And they're on 13 points. Now, obviously, we've talked about the top end of the table. Down at the basement, it's looking pretty grim for GHK, who have played a game more, 4 points adrift on Biggar and Dundee, who seem to be in better form at the moment. Biggar are starting to go in a little bit of a running result. Dundee are scoring points and scoring tries, have almost turned the tide, but GHK have went the other way. They started okay in the season, and then they've not been able to really hit their straps after that. So the interesting thing always about the bottom of the table is that getting a win is like it's so difficult to pick up. You don't know when your next win's going to come. So some of these games are really, really important as you travel through the season. So even though they do have that game more, I don't think at the bottom of the table that matters as much, because they're at a premium victories at the bottom of the table. So yeah, there's still a lot of things to do. I think that the other teams up above them, certainly that victory for Watsonians gives them a little bit of daylight, and you'd imagine the other teams are clear now. So it's going to be between one of those three teams that are going to go down into that too.
Well, this Saturday's games in National 1, starting with Dundee. They're at home again, but this time against Ayr, so it's 9th against 1st there. Dundee competitive, but it will be a major shock, I think, if they can stop Ayr in their tracks. Let's see what Ayr head coach Grant Anderson has on his mind this week.
A good win for us on Saturday. It was quite a big day at the club actually, with the Bulls in the semi-final, and we actually had 2 big lunches and stuff like that, so one or two of our boys were a wee bit nervous, I think, actually. It was interesting to see, but obviously we're into kind of the second round of games. We had looked at Biggar. Obviously they have a number of guys returning to play. They've also got Borthwick back in there, so a different team largely from the one that we played up there, and I was pleased. Actually, I was pleased with the victory. It was a kind of ugly victory, if I'm honest. It wasn't perhaps the way we would want to play an attack. Obviously we didn't have our standoff, and Gauzy was filling in at 10. He actually did well, but I was pleased with our physicality. Biggar are a really physical team, one of the most physical teams in the league. So I was pleased that we were able to match them, and especially our carries in the first half and attack, we were able to probably maybe outdo them a wee bit with some of the things that we were looking to do. I was pleased as well with some individual performances, much like last week. A number of guys putting their hand up for selection this week, and the depth of quality we've got in the squad now is really, really pleasing. Again, everybody's got a real understanding of what we're trying to do in games, and depending on who we're playing against, how we're trying to do things, throughout the game. So I'm pleased that it is obviously still evolving, and although we've had a largely positive start to things, there is a lot of learning there for us still to be doing. So no one at the club, certainly that I'm involved with, is getting ahead of themselves in any way, shape or form. We had a really honest conversation last night doing a review process, and actually there was a number of things that I'm not overly happy with that we could be doing better. So like I said, and I've said to you many times, we want to keep standards as high as possible. We're looking for competition for places, and I'm looking ultimately for people to make an impact, either starting or coming off the bench. Our bench has been a real strength for us in the last 2 weeks. I've really felt that when we've made changes, they haven't weakened us at all. So that was a real positive that we highlighted last night, and something that I was pleased with. In terms of the challenge that Biggar gave us, we knew what they were going to do in terms of their attack and their defence. I think everybody knows that's that's a kind of feature of their team. They're a hard team, they're physical, but I was happy with the way we met that challenge, and I was pleased to get the 5 points again. Our attention now turns to Dundee away, which is always a really tough fixture for anybody, especially this time of year. I'm not really sure what condition their pitch is going to be in, so that'll be a challenge for us. Obviously, they've played against Accies last week, and by all accounts, they've done quite well to score that many points against a good Accies team. So they have their own strengths, obviously, like every team in the league, and we need to make sure that we approach the game with the right mindset for an away trip, and also with the right targets and strategy that we want to play. When we played Dundee at home, that for us is probably one of our worst performances for me. So I'm really looking for quite a big contrast in kind of our attacking style and our defensive style, and how we're looking to approach that game. Because like I've said, our D did not function that day against Dundee, where we're actually really quite poor across the board. I know we won, but at the same time there was lots of that I was not happy with. So I'd like to meet Dundee head on and come away hopefully with what we want to come away from that game. Again, Dundee will pose some challenges. I've not had a chance to look at their team, but I would imagine with Eunice being back, etc., that it might be slightly different to what we faced, when we played them first time round. So again, we'll deal with that challenge in those circumstances when we get up there. But we're looking forward to the game and looking forward to keeping our momentum.
Ayr going for 11 out of 11.
Yeah, and you wouldn't bet against them this weekend. The good thing that when you're listening to Grant Anderson there is that they're reflecting back on a game that they just weren't happy with, and they're 11 from 11. And they're going to Dundee. They weren't happy with the previous performance, and just even having a look at their team that they'd fielded against Biggar at the weekend. Players like Joe Stafford coming in at the second row. McCluskey at 10's a good operator. Bova's on the bench. And even in the seconds, Howard's on the wing starting for the second team. So the depth there, they've got 22 players in the second team. That shows you that the rugby appetite at Ayr, which has always been the case, is so healthy. And I think that for me is when the beauty of the Super Series works and club rugby works, is the fact that it was a big weekend for them, but it's a big weekend for everybody. It's not just a big weekend for a separate club. It's the fact that they make it a big day. It's a big day out. The stand is packed. They've got a big atmosphere on in the club. They advertise it well. Ayr just do it right. I feel they always have. So this weekend, going into this game, it'd be difficult to see anything other than an Ayr victory on the road.
So Gala versus GHK, a real chance for a fourth win on the bounce for the Maroons. Here's Director of Rugby at Gala, and that's Ewan Swinton.
Gala travelled up to Glasgow on Saturday feeling fairly confident, but very mindful of the strength of the opposition that we'd be facing. However, the boys really stuck to the task on Saturday and put in a display that we were all pretty proud of. It was, without any doubt, I think our best of the season. There was great improvement across the board and some really outstanding performances. Some of the things that I particularly enjoyed seeing was the really strong direct running from Dan Nicholson in the centre, and Ben Gill out in the wing, who was going particularly well, and even when he was stopped, he was fighting for every inch of the ground. It was great to see. It spoke about the spirit that the boys had in the team on Saturday. Callum Pate had a great game. His tackling was absolutely outstanding, and it helped to hold off some very dangerous runners that exist within the GHA ranks. The forwards played very well as a unit. The set piece was good, certainly the scrum. The line out had its moments, and it had its not so good moments. But across the board, the team played extremely well. One of the things that is really pleasing and really encouraging for me, and I think also for the coaches, is that our standout players in the ordinary course of things are now finding that they are able to be free to play their own game. They're not relied upon to do more than their fair share, as is so often the case with your perceived star players. And I think that reflects the way that the guys are developing across the board. And this was GHA's first home defeat of the season, so really notable. It felt like a real sea change moment for Gala, so hopefully we can now kick on and really take advantage of the feel-good factor that we're undoubtedly experiencing at the moment. So we move on to GHK this week, and immediately there's a reality check there, because GHK deservedly beat us through in Glasgow. We were beaten in the scrum, we were beaten in the loose, we were beaten to an awful lot of things. Now we're going to take that to heart and really challenge them this weekend. They've had their tough times recently, and we certainly intend to ensure that run continues. The Gala squad is strengthening. So many people are coming through and staking their claim when they get a chance, that I think the coaches can fairly claim to being in a position to actually pick a team specifically for the opposition that we're going to play against. So we'll go after them. We'll play the game that's been emerging from the team, strong in the forwards, really determined, really bloody minded, for want of a better term, physically challenging the opposition and running the ball wide at every opportunity. So it should be good to watch. I hope that we get a good crowd along on Saturday. Very confident that we can give GHK a solid, hard game, respectful of an opponent that's previously beaten us, but very upbeat about what we have to come in the rest of the season. I can't see any reason why we can't beat any team in our league, and even when it comes to the border league, I don't think we need to fear anyone. We are really progressing. We're progressing well. We're becoming confident. We will never be cocky. We haven't earned that right. Real good feel-good factor. Adding to the feel-good factor at the club, we actually have some additions to the squad coming along in the next few weeks, which is tremendous news from all of our points of view. We had Craig Keddy at training on Tuesday night for the first time. Craig was the captain of the Boroughmuir Bears in the recent Super 6 series, and it will be great to have him available for selection in the weeks ahead. It will be entirely down to the coaches and him when he joins the fray. Added to that, we're also expecting the arrival fairly imminently of an 18-year-old scrum half from New Zealand who is coming in through the SRU Academy system and has been allocated to Gala. I don't have a name for you for him yet, but he will be a welcome addition to our squad, and hopefully he'll start to earn some game time in the weeks after his arrival. That's not to say he'll jump straight in. Jack Niven is currently doing a great job for us, and we're grateful to him for all that he's doing there. So nobody will be guaranteed a place, but to strengthen the squad in that way and to continue to have ambitions to strengthen the squad in that way is a tremendous thing and a great sign of the progress that we're making.
Ewan Swinton there, and Craig Keddy back at Netherdale. That's a real plus, isn't it?
Yeah, it definitely is. You know, he's been a great servant to Boroughmuir and Boroughmuir Bears over the last few years, and obviously captaining the side in the Super 6 and the Super Series, and he's going to be a huge plus coming back to Gala. Obviously, Dean Keddy is part of the coaching setup as well as his brother, who was a good player in his own right, a fly half, moved to back row. But Craig Keddy is, he's made, and he's been competing for Premiership Bears at a really good level. In terms of the team, his team haven't performed that well, but I don't think you can take that away from the quality of the player. Played him years ago. He was always a really difficult character to play against, and he'll be a welcome addition back in Gala.
Glasgow Accies against Watsonians, 3rd against 7th. Can Watsonians take their home form on the road to Glasgow? They've played 6 away and drawn 1, lost 5.
Yeah, I think it's an opportunity for Glasgow Accies to continue what's been a remarkable season in National 1. Watsonians obviously beating a team who was roundabout, a team in a position roundabout similar to what Glasgow Accies are in the table just now. So it's not a foregone conclusion that the Glasgow Accies are going to run away with this. Watsonians have shown that they're able to compete with teams in the league, just not being able to show that consistency. So home advantage you would think will count here because Glasgow Accies have been high scoring, but Watsonians, how they've been over the last few years in any makeup of their squad, be it semi-pro or be it in the club game, they're good rugby players and they like to play a good brand of rugby, so it should be a good game no matter what, no matter what the outcome. It should be an interesting game at Glasgow Accies.
Highland versus GHA, 2nd against 6th here. Highland unbeaten at home this season, and this is one they simply have to win, obviously, after losing last week at Watsonians. And of course, the only other team to beat them was GHA, so they'll certainly be wanting to take them back to Canal Park in Inverness and give them a good hiding.
Yes, I think to maintain interest at the top of the table, Highland certainly have a social duty, a moral duty this weekend to pick up a victory, but that's not the way that rugby works, and GHA are the only team to defeat Highland other than obviously last weekend's result. You think they'll be wanting to make sure that they can make their home form count again and then build that confidence and get it back onto the road, because it's unlikely that they're going to be able to turn over this gap that they've got to Ayr, but it's not impossible. As long as there's a chance, they'll keep plying away at it. They'll keep trying to make sure that they narrow the margins. So this is a must-win game for them. They need to make sure that they defeat GHA, but they're no mugs. They'll not roll over and get their bellies tickled. So it's going to be a tough game at Canal Park.
Melrose versus Biggar, 4th against 8th. Melrose after a 4th win on the trot as well against a team they've already beaten heavily at Hartree Mill, but this is a stronger, bigger team now who've won 2 games now. But let's bring in Melrose coach Ian Chisholm, see what he has to say this week.
The game probably struggled to find any rhythm and flow up at Annie's Land last weekend. I think both teams conceded well over 10 penalties, and it's always pretty difficult when it's a high stoppage game, and as a result of it being a high stoppage game, we probably didn't get to play with the possession we'd have liked. That first 20 minutes, it's seen us pinned in our own 22, and I think we probably conceded 7 to 8 scrum penalties, and luckily for us, we never seen anybody go to the bin. But for the little possession that we did have, I really thought we were ruthless, and having Donald Crawford back on the side, that helped us give us a bit of cutting edge and a bit of a focal point to go through. And come the second half, I think we found ourselves 4 scores clear and in control of the game. And look, historically, we've gone from a really positive performance to a really passive one. Whether that's getting a little bit complacent or just going away for systems, I'm not really sure, but it was good to back up our performance based upon our defence and our ability to manage our own half. And for us, it does give us a bit of confidence having a couple really good performances. Yes, the result is good and it helps with the league table, but I think just having a bit of reassurance that what we're doing is working, and when we stick to task, things go really well. And this weekend, Biggar are coming to the Greenyards, and look, it won't be the same team that played there in the year. Look, I understand they'll be angry about the result that we put on them up at Hartree Mill, and they'll probably be looking for a bit of revenge. But again, we're purring. We're feeling good, and there are a lot of changes to the squad this week, just with availability. We've got a few injuries that we're trying to get out of the medical room. And while Saturday wasn't the complete performance, we were able to play some really positive rugby, despite the ball only being in play. I think it was just over 25 minutes, and this weekend it's quite unique for us now because we've got some selection issues to consider. We're only allowed to name 3 players in our matchday squad who've been named in a Super 6 squad in the last season, and 5 doesn't go into 3, so there are boys that need to rotate out the squad and into the second 15 this weekend, which doesn't really make sense, but look, that's how it is. Kieran Clark was the player that missed out last week. So he'll come into the squad, and then from there it's just about making a decision based on who and what is best for the team and is best for this particular game. But look, we're excited about the challenge. We're excited to be back at home. And look, we had a pretty heavy night on Tuesday, and we'll strip it right back on Thursday. But the boys are feeling really good and feeling really confident. And while we are missing a few regulars, both the captain and vice captain, Struan Hutchison and Angus Runciman, are missing this weekend. We've got boys that are more than capable of stepping up, especially young boys who, they're only 18, 19, 20 years old, but they've got belief in what we're trying to do. They've bought in, they work really hard. So look, we're excited to see these guys get in the park and put themselves about and even try and keep these boys out of the squad when they do come back.
5 back from the Southern Knights. As he said, you're only allowed 3. The other 2 playing second team rugby.
Yeah,
doesn't sound right.
No, it doesn't sound right. There's loads of ways you can look at this, because it's a strange rule, because you want players playing rugby and you want top quality players playing at the highest level. So there's a couple of ways you can look at it. There's obviously allegiances to Melrose, and then the players go back to that club. But if they've been playing semi-professional rugby, there's other opportunities to play higher up the food chain and go back into the Premiership and perhaps play for one of the other clubs. And that sometimes might help the quality of the players who'd be willing to go the other way as well and play for the Southern Knights in time. If we look at like Donald Crawford, who I did notice was in the squad last weekend, he's been one of the most vastly improved players, I think, in the Borders over the last couple of years. I think he's really, really improved his game all round. He made a real big impact for the Southern Knights as well. If you were telling me he was going to be playing on a Friday night at the Gites against Peebles Reds, then there's something wrong. There's something completely wrong there, because he should be playing at least Premiership rugby, but if not, he should be playing at least for his hometown club. So there's a few different ways that you look at that, but what it's doing is 2 top quality players who could be playing and contributing to a club at a higher level are having to play for the twos, which isn't a bad thing. Like, it's not to downplay the level of player in the twos, but there's a system there for a reason. There's players who should be playing for the twos and playing for the firsts, and if they're able to, they can then go into other clubs or then into semi-pro, not just being parachuted back into your clubs and going, right, you're just going to have to manage them while they're in hibernation, ready for the Super Series to come again. So yeah, it leaves a bit of a sour taste in the mouth, for the second half of the season. Fortunately for some teams in this league, it's not going to have a huge impact. But for some teams, this could have big ramifications in terms of how the rest of the league campaign plays out.
Well, let's move into National 2 and last weekend's results. Falkirk 32, Newton Stewart 49, Gordonians 20, Peebles 31, Lasswade 33, Kirkcaldy 27, Stewmel 26, Berwick 3, Stirling County 47, Aberdeen Grammar 28. So Newton Stewart coming up on the rails now, serious contenders after 2 losses at the start of the season, which I think from memory were against Falkirk and Lasswade, who are obviously 2 of the other clubs going for promotion, but they've won their last 7, and Falkirk lose the top spot.
Yeah, it was a big weekend in National 2. It's a huge score as well on the road, and Newton Stewart have been pretty formidable at home. Obviously they were able to turn over Peebles, who are another promotion-chasing team, but to get 49 points on the road, that's now Peebles and Newton Stewart that have went to Falkirk and been able to turn them over. So, in terms of their promotion aspirations, they're going to find it difficult to then, obviously go the other side of the league and travel to those pitches and try and get victories themselves. So it means at the top of the National 2 is one of those intriguing leagues now. It's like perhaps what the old divisions last year in terms of National 1 used to be like. So there's a few teams really putting their hand up for promotion. Gordonians, you would say, have perhaps shot themselves in the foot this weekend and maybe just on the fringes of it now.
Yeah, big win for Peebles doing the double in Aberdeen against Gordonians. Lasswade, of course, only beating lowly Kirkcaldy by 6 points at Hawthornden, but they go back to the top of the table, and anyone of the top 5 really could still win that one promotion spot. It's going to be very, very similar to last season.
Yeah, it's like I'm not going to sugarcoat it. Like I'm a Peebles guy. I would love to see Peebles obviously get that promotion spot, and I do want to see them go on a run and get out of this division. I feel it's a club that, and I know it better than other clubs, but I know it's a club that's growing. The youth system's been really good, and I think they should be playing rugby further up. the difficulty is going to be grasping that opportunity this year and making sure that they go on that run, they beat those teams, because they've already been beaten by Last Wade at home, so they have to go on a run and make sure that they pick up victories on the road and they make sure their home form is pretty solid. But it's the same for all the other teams, so I'm just nailing my colours to the mast really. But I do want to see Peebles go out of this division. That's my allegiance. But it's an interesting league, and you see the Newton Stewart, as you said, they're coming up on the rails. They're coming up quite quietly and subtly about their business. There's a lot of interesting games in National 2, and it's going to be a brilliant finish to that league.
It shows the importance as well of bonus points, because if you look at the table, Last Wade at the top played 10, so they've played one more than Peebles, Falkirk and Newton Stewart and Gordonians. They're on 41. Peebles in second place now, 37 points, and that's on the points difference. They've got a better points difference than Falkirk. And then Newton Stewart, who have also played 9-1-7, the same as Falkirk and Peebles, but they're on 33, only 5 try bonuses compared to 9 try bonuses for Falkirk and 8 for Peebles, who also got a losing bonus as well. Gordonians slip now down to 5th place. They're on 30 points. And then there is a big divide. Stirling County, despite their big win, in 6th place, 21 points. Stuart's Melville in 7th now, 16 points. How quick things can change there. A couple of back-to-back wins and all of a sudden they go from last place into 7th. And don't forget they had 3 points docked, so 16 for them. Kirkcaldy slipped to 8th on 15. Aberdeen Grammar get 1 losing bonus last week, very important. That gets them another point ahead of Berwick, so they're on 10 points in 9th, and Berwick in 10th place got nothing out of last Saturday and they remain on 8.
Yeah, an interesting make-up to that league, as you say. The top teams, I think it's it's going to be a bit of a seesaw battle for all those sides. I think you're going to see different teams at the top, and it will be a bit of a grandstand finish to this division, but it's going to be equally as tight at the bottom. We said it before, like wins come at a premium, and you can see Berwick still not got that victory. But you mentioned it about bonus points. They've got those bonus points in the bag. They've had a draw, so they're able to still keep touch with the teams above them, and it's a huge weekend yet again in National 2.
And let's have a look at the fixtures. Aberdeen Grammar at home to Falkirk, so 9th against 3rd. Falkirk's only 2 losses this season have actually come at home, so they'll not mind travelling to Aberdeen.
Nobody minds travelling to Aberdeen. It's always a good trip. I used to love when you got the fixtures out and you seen you were going up to Aberdeen Grammar, or Ellen at the time, when they were a bit higher up the league pyramid, because you knew it was a good bus trip. But
not necessarily on the way back though.
Sometimes,
but not always.
Amateur rugby, it's always a good bus trip on the way back. But in terms of on the rugby field, as you say, Falkirk have lost 2 big games at home. And this is probably a good fixture to try and react and get back to some decent form and keep touch at the top. You would imagine they'll be targeting the 5 points. Aberdeen have not been any great shakes this season, so they'll be looking for 5 points for this game. But you do think that it's again one of those really sticky games when the weather's not favourable for open, expansive rugby. So it's certainly a difficult hurdle for Falkirk to overcome.
Berwick against Stirling County. Big win for Stirling last week at home to Aberdeen, and now they travel to Scremerston to face winless Berwick. The thoughts of County's boss Craig Deakins coming up, and first forwards coach for Berwick, Paul Pringle.
Last Saturday we visited Stewmellan, which was a very important game for us. Unfortunately we went down 26-3. It was a tough one to take. I'll be honest, it didn't feel like a 26-3 game. We certainly had chances at key moments in the game that on any other day, we probably could have taken. Aidan Rosie had a really good break in the first half when we were 3-0 down, and unfortunately didn't manage to touch it down over the line. And then the same player again in the second half had another opportunity where the ball was knocked out his hand just as he went over the line. It's just the kind of thing that happens when you're in the position that we're in. Aidan's a great player for us, and we talked a couple of weeks ago about just how exciting a winger he is, and he showed that on Saturday. He'll bounce back from that, and I'm sure he'll get more than his fair share of tries before the season ends. Unfortunately, we didn't kind of execute on the day. The bounce of the ball, decisions, all these kind of things can go against you when you're pushing for points and you're near the bottom. We had a chance just before half time. We felt we went over the line in the corner, and just interpretation of decisions and things like that all seem to just go against you. But ultimately it's down to us. You can always try to blame it on the bounce of a ball or a decision made, but it really doesn't wash with myself and Colin. We need to take these things into our own hands, and What we're stressing to the guys is that we want them to continue playing rugby, keep playing that open brand that we actively encourage, and the results will come. So looking forward to this Saturday. Real key game for us, probably more so than even last week with Stirling County at home. In terms of team news, Jordan Patterson unfortunately sustained a knee injury last week, which looks like it's going to keep him out for a couple of weeks. Jordan's been great for us this season, the real cornerstone of the scrum. So that is a bad break for us. So hopefully it'll not be too long. We do have guys like Jason Garwood and Stu Gilchrist who can come in there and they'll do a good job. We don't have James Thompson available this week, so we'll be making some changes in the backs. But by and large, we're approaching this game the same way as we have every other week. We like to play the brand of rugby that we do. We'll go into this really just wanting to, up our work rate, keep the intensity, move Stirling round the paddock, and we've got a big lunch on before the game. So we have 80 plus sponsors there, so it'd be fantastic if the lads can put on a bit of a show for them and they can be there to witness the first win of the season, all being well.
So on Saturday, we got off to a really good start against Aberdeen. First 40 minutes, pretty much everything that we've been asking the players to do. Training for the whole season so far, everything just seemed to click. It was just really rewarding to see. We went in at half time 33-14 up. However, had the players well warned that Aberdeen are a really good team, and they're not going to sit back. In the second half, as expected, they came out and actually threw everything at us. I think they made a couple of wee changes as well, but we managed to pick up another couple of scores in the second half, and we ended up finishing the game 47-28. However, it's one of them ones that is a bit frustrating for us. The scoreline looks really good. First half was really good. In the second half, we just kind of dropped off and we allowed Aberdeen a foothold back into the game. And being honest, there's no teams in this league that you would say that there's no easy games. You just have to look at some of the scores that are happening elsewhere. I think it was last week against Kirkcaldy last week was a really close game, top of the table against bottom of the table. And for our young boys, the learning curve is actually, we've got our foot in the throat, so we need to kind of keep it on, put these teams away. But for a young team, they're learning every week. We had two guys get their debuts in the weekend against Aberdeen, which again is just great, allowing these boys who are playing really well in the twos to get a bit of experience playing first team rugby. It is going to pay us back massively in the long term. Even Saturday against Aberdeen, Ramsey Scott, our young 7 who's come through the youth systems, he got man of the match from Aberdeen. He was awarded that, which was great. He's a young boy who's playing really well and he's getting his rewards, and hopefully he'll take confidence from that and take it on to this week. Also playing Berwick this weekend, down at Skemerson. We played them at Stirling County earlier in the season. It was a really physical, hard-fought game. We managed to pick up the win, but it was we know what they're going to deliver this weekend. You just have to look at some of the results Berwick have had this year, especially at home. They've played Peebles, Newton Stewart, Falkirk and Stumell. All these games have been really close. So it's home advantage is a big one, especially down there. They've got hospitality this weekend, so it's going to be a big day for the players down there. However, we're going down there wanting to back up what happened last weekend for us against Aberdeen. We're going down there wanting to play the kind of rugby that we want to play. It is going to be a hard physical game, but the players that we've got, hopefully we can go down and do the job. There's a couple of injuries from last weekend, so a few of the boys coming back in that have featured already this season for us. To date so far we've used 45 players, which is really good. We're giving all these young boys that experience, playing from the seconds, playing up to the first 15, all these young boys coming in. And the good thing now is, we're picking up a couple of injuries, but we're bringing guys in that maybe have featured 2 or 3 games earlier on in the season. So it's another opportunity for them, the guys, to come in, make a stake for the jersey. So hopefully this weekend we can go down, get the job done, get back up the road.
Stirling are pretty comfortable and pretty settled in the league. I think that listening to the conversations there, I think that from a Stirling point of view, I think they do believe that they obviously go into this favourites and Berwick are poor this season. Not in an unsavoury way. I just think that they think they're the better team, which is completely fine. But then that means that Berwick just have to react to that. But then also Stirling have obviously mentioned there that they know it's going to be a big day. The hospitality, it's amazing what that does to a team. It is amateur, but that's your stadium, that's your place to perform in front of the locals and your family, your friends, and that's what should give Berwick that little bit extra this weekend. Whether it's enough to get them over the line in a victory against this county side, I don't know, but certainly it's another huge game. You think that with every weekend that passes at the bottom of a table, if results don't go for the team on the bottom, there's a chance it can be doubled by somebody else picking up a victory. The wider the margin becomes at the bottom of the table, the more desperate you become. But at the moment, it's manageable, and I'm sure Berwick will be getting that win at some point soon, and they'll be hoping it's this weekend.
Newton Stewart against Lasswade, match of the day in that division for sure. Newton Stewart going for 8 on the bounce against the team at the top of the table.
Yeah, match of the day. It certainly is, I think, in this division this weekend. Newton Stewart at home are really, really, really solid. And I do think Lasswade are going through that little bit of a patchy spell at the moment where they have kind of, they've stolen a march on every other team in the division. They started off really strong, but I think now some teams have not figured them out, but the aura around them has fallen away slightly. But Newton Stewart have went on a terrific run of form, but in terms of their home form as well, one defeat against Falkirk at the opening weekend of the season, and from then I was certainly one of the guys talking about Falkirk as probably the favourites from this division. It's turned out to be a slightly different narrative in this league. But Lasswade have got to travel there. Peebles came unstuck earlier on, and you just see the kind of how volatile this league can be, because Falkirk have been poor at home, defeated twice by near rivals. They then go, Newton Stewart have to go to Falkirk. They're defeated, so Lasswade have got a job to do this weekend and to try and pick up that victory at Newton Stewart.
Amazingly, at Bladnoch, their home ground, Bladnoch Park, the team that's given them the most problem this year is Aberdeen Grammar.
Yeah, and obviously that the Berwick result in there as well is pretty tight. So there's 2 tight games against teams towards the bottom of the division, and that's obviously home and away at Berwick, where that was at Scremerston. But that just shows you how difficult this league can be. And you look back at the obviously Deacon's saying there about the teams. There is no easy game in this league, and I think that rings true, especially when you look at the results that Newton Stewart have racked up this season.
And the other game is Peebles against Stewart's Melville. Peebles back at the Gites, playing better than ever after a mid-season glitch, but Stewmel getting better every week. They took the chances last Saturday against Berwick. Alex Haggart, Stewmel head coach, is always good value when he talks to us, as is Peebles head coach Graham Patterson. We can hear from both of them now, starting with Graham.
So last Saturday's game against Gordonians was something that we knew was going to be a tough challenge. The circumstances, the game, the journey up, getting ourselves in the right mental state. But we got over those hurdles and obviously prevailed with a good win in the end at 31-20. How the game went was very much first sort of 10-15 minutes was both teams really feeling out where they were. What we did see and started to impose was a bit of a better kicking strategy. We had the 2 main kicking threats in Ross Wolfenden and Donald Anderson at the back at 15. They really did play a big part in that, in maintaining our field position and soaking up pressure and being able to relieve a bit of pressure from our kicking game. Which really was pretty impressive, to be fair, including a real morale boost in 50-22, which gave us a good foothold in their 22 and an ability to strike from the line out, and that's where we really did dominate that part of the game. The line out was functioning really well in terms of delivery, giving us opportunities to really put pressure on them, and we did that throughout the first half, really, to be fair, through our line-out drives, although maybe not, we converted 1, but probably should have had 1 or 2 others in there as well. But fair play to them, they defended that pretty effectively on occasions, but we were pretty dominant, I felt, and the scoreline reflected that at half-time. A 17-3 up away from home in Aberdeen is a pretty good place to be in, but we felt we could do more. That was the feeling at half-time. Could we exert some more pressure on there? After the break, we really did keep up the pressure and play some good rugby then. The kicking strategy worked pretty well in terms of relieving that pressure, and their prop was red carded in about the 50-minute mark. High tackle, which the ref dealt with. So I suppose sometimes it happens, it galvanises the team that's had the red card shown to them, and it really did energise them. And they actually threw caution to the wind and played some really wide and expansive and sort of carefree rugby, which on occasions we really struggled to deal with, and it really put us under a bit of pressure, to be honest. It ended up a 31-20 victory, them scoring a couple of tries in that sort of mad 10-minute period where they really did chuck the ball around, and there were kind of breakout sort of tries. Strange in terms of looking at the stats, 28 penalties in the game, 15 against us and 13 against them, and it wasn't that type of game. It was a pretty open, good game of rugby, and you just try to analyse, right, where's the problem? It's an area of concern. If you're getting 28 penalties in a game, is the concern with the refereeing? Is the concern with the playing? Is it with the coaching? And who's at fault, if you want to say that kind of word? And how do we get that count down? Is a challenge for me as a coach, for the players, but also as the referee, as well as looking at the situations and saying, what do I need to do here? Why do I need to blow my whistle, or can I let the game flow? And that's something, is overall, not just in this game, but in every game, we need to provide that kind of opportunity for people to play and people to watch a good game of rugby. So that's something we'll maybe look at over the next week or so. But overall, obviously delighted with that 5-point victory away from home up in Aberdeen. A great outcome for us, and it keeps the pressure on that top part of the league. And speaking to the Gordonians boys afterwards, they were obviously disappointed, and it makes it very difficult for them to force their way back into that title challenge from there. But I'm sure they'll keep on going, because it's always going to be a difficult place to go for any team, and they'll take a few more scalps up there, I'm pretty sure of that. Looking ahead, we've got Stirling at the weekend in the reverse fixture, where we done very well up at Inverleith, and put 40 odd points on them. We did concede 26, I think it was, in the end, but a good performance again overall for most parts of that game. So we'll need to do that again on Saturday. Yes, we'll have home advantage, however we know that we need to put in a very solid performance. A couple of kind of guys that are away through work, so Kenny Clyde and Rowan McKeever are away back offshore for their jobs, so we'll be missing them, but we'll be replacing them with players coming back. We've got a number of players sort of in the mix now for the selection. Murdo Anderson, the club captain, is hopefully back. He'll get assessed on Thursday with regards to his sort of hand injury that he has, so hopefully he's passed and ready to go back into that squad as well. Potential other couple of boys coming into it is young Colt and Cal McRobert, and also Scotty Lawson, who's back as well. So a few boys to come back in, which will be good to replace those boys that are not. And Willie Aitken will be back as well, which will add a tremendous amount of experience and scrumming prowess to our front row options, which are pretty good at the moment. But touch wood, we don't have to go down too far into the resources to replace those, which we haven't so far this season. So we're looking forward to expanding our game and developing our game. The backs are certainly, by their own admission, didn't get the widest of channels exploited on Saturday, so we might look to do that again this Saturday, try and move that ball to the edge a bit more. But the age-old core functions of scrum, line-out, phase play will come back into it for the forwards, and producing that platform that we look to exert pressure on. The good thing we've got is now we've got a pretty solid kicking game, which will stand us in good stead when we're playing against Stirling on Saturday, and hopefully we can maintain our good form that we've shown in the last few games and come away with the victory.
A really good result for us at the weekend against Berwick. I thought we did some really good stuff. I think a huge amount of credit should go to Berwick as well. The scoreline doesn't reflect how tight and how cagey a game it actually was. I think Berwick had a couple of really clear-cut opportunities, and I think I spoke to their coach after the game as well, and I think that was the overall prognosis, as it were, which was we were quite clinical, and I think the couple of really big chances they did have, they maybe didn't take, and the scoreline would have been different, and I also think that it would have been a completely different game if that was the case. But I thought our lads were outstanding. We built a lot of pressure. We built a lot of scoreboard pressure as well. Jamie Kane Our 10 took threes, and I think Sordy, our captain, was really instrumental in those decisions, constantly building the score, and that's just like another nail in the coffin, which I think is quite important, when you're in the sort of position that we were in. I think the other element of it as well was how well our lads adapted. It was a really cagey game. 10-15 minutes in, I think both sort of sides would have realised that wasn't a bonus point win game, that was just a win game. And from my perspective, I was really impressed with how the boys went about it. Charlie Burrows, our starting 9, went off with a broken finger. Aaron Porteous, our replacement 9, came on, and then he might have dislocated his shoulder within 5 minutes. So we then had our fullback playing 9, and we had our back row, James Ferguson, who used to be a centre, playing in the midfield. We had to overcome and adapt quite a lot, and I was really impressed with the lads, how they kind of went about it, and their mindset was definitely like, let's make sure we get the win first and anything else second. So that was quite a mature way of going about it, and I think something that was probably quite commendable. Looking into this week against Peebles, they're flying. I think, to be honest with you, one of the things that we had spoken about as a group was this second part of the season is a chance for us to maybe show to other clubs what we're all about. I think that was something that really frustrated the lads, was that you get an 80-minute snapshot to show other people what your team is like. And I think all too often in the first round of games, we didn't show other clubs and other oppositions what our strengths were and how good at rugby we actually can be. So I think from our perspective, and I know the boys are desperate to do this, I think they just want to go out and I think they want to show people that there is a rugby team in there. We're well aware of the challenge, like going down to the Gites, playing under lights at 3 o'clock on a Saturday. It is quite a tough place to go and play rugby. They're flying high. I think they've got a really good young standoff playing for them as well. So, we're well aware of how good they are and what their ambition probably is this year. So I think for us, it's just about going down and fronting up front, like stopping their maul game, maybe not giving away the amount of penalties that we did, which ultimately at Inverleith led them to using their maul game as much as they did, and try and negate their threats while trying to promote our strengths as much as possible. So that's the plan. Whether or not we're able to action it on Saturday is a completely different thing, but that's the idea.
So Stuart's Melville going to Peebles on a good run at the moment, and one that Peebles though should be quite confident with.
Oh, and as a Peebles guy, I feel nervous that you've said that now, Stuart. But yeah, no, totally. I think that we covered the game earlier on in the season at Inverleith, and Peebles came out the traps really well, and it looked like it was going to be one-way traffic, but they almost let Stuart's Melville back into it in the end. Discipline and a great rally from Stuart's Melville to almost get back into a position where they could have really got something from the game. At the end it was a pushover try from Peebles to just kind of put the game to bed. From I think it was Rudy Smith was the player who got the final score. So it was an interesting game. You would think Peebles back in their home patch they'd be quite comfortable against Stuart's Melville, but I had them down to beat Last Wade at home. Like the Gites has been an okay place, but I did say at the beginning of the season they have to make that place a fortress if they want to go up from this division, and Last Wade breached that. And it's now that it's Stuart's Melville that I've got the opportunity to try and just take the wind out of their sails again. I just do think that Peebles at the moment are really, really strong. Some really good young players. The one thing that's really changed, the conversations that I've had is the introduction of Ross Wolfenden. We talk about a lot of young players getting opportunities. He's come in, played man of the match. Last weekend's game, he's a steady 10. Ross Wolfenden's been told to go in and control these games, and he seems to be doing a really good job of that. So obviously Peebles are in a good position to have a player of his ilk coming through to take over the mantle from players like Greg Rayburn and Donald Anderson who've served the club really well over the last few years, but there's a bit of new blood there, which is great to see at the Gites.
National 3 then, Boroughmuir 83, Dumfries 12, Hamilton 10, Howe 545, Hillhead Jordan Hill 27, Allen Glens 25, Orkney 50, West of Scotland 24, they remain unbeaten, and Preston Lodge at the top of the table 47, Cartha Queen's Park 14. So Dumfries clearly going through a crisis at the moment, leaking over 80 points 2 weeks running. Orkney still unbeaten, but not top of the table because Preston Lodge keep racking up those bonus points.
Yeah, I got panicked there because I'm looking at the wrong fixtures. I'm looking at this weekend's fixtures and I thought, how if Fife beat Orkney 12-0? But they don't. That's the kick-off time this weekend. So yeah, in terms of, again, it's remarkable that Orkney are going on this run, 50 points, at home as well. So, it's been a good season, but still not top of the pile because Preston Lodge have been in a real purple patch at the moment, scoring a lot of points as well. But it's one of those. it's going to be one of those leagues that if they can all maintain that form towards the end, then it's going to be it almost looks like a bit of a two-horse race now. Obviously Alan Glen's slipping up again just a little bit. Those two sides, Orkney and Preston Lodge, are the kind of teams that everybody's looking to hunt down.
But you can't rule out Howe Fife. They're on the ascendancy, and Hillhead Jordan Hill keeping themselves in the running with a good win over Alan Glen's as well.
And that's a huge game this weekend, because Howe Fife, they welcome Orkney this weekend, so it's going to be a big game in terms of the implications of what that does to the top of the table. So certainly, a lot of decent rugby this weekend, but Orkney and Preston Lodge sitting pretty towards the top of that table.
Let's have a look at that table then. Preston Lodge, as you say, top of the pile, 45 points. Orkney do have a game in hand, though. They've won all 9 so far that they've played. 107 points difference compared with Preston Lodge's 308. But they're on 42 points. Howe Fife in third place on 38, but they've played 1 game more than Orkney. And Alan Glen's have played 9, 36 points for them, but they'll be really disappointed that they lost at Hillhead Jordan Hill, because that creeps Hillhead Jordan Hill up to 5th place now. Boroughmuir in 6th on 29, still in touch. West of Scotland then a big drop, 14 points to 7th place. West of Scotland on 15. Cartha Queen's Park in 8th on 12. Dumfries on 12 as well. They're in 9th. And Hamilton still without a win in 10 games. 5 try bonuses, 4 losing bonuses. So they're stuck on 9 points.
It's an interesting league, and you do look, as you say, there at the bottom of that, Hamilton yet to get a win. The team just above them, and not by much, is Dumfries. 2 victories that they've had. It just shows you how important bonus points can be in this division. So 4 losing bonus points, 5 tries, gives them quite a decent return from what's been a difficult campaign. So gives them hope in the bottom of the table.
So this week then, Alan Glen's against Hamilton, that's 4th against 10th. Cartha Queen's Park versus Boroughmuir, 8th against 6th there. Dumfries, 9th against Hillhead Jordan Hill in 5th. The big game, Howe Fife against Orkney, 3rd against 2nd. Howe lost 3 times this season, but the table doesn't lie in a bonus point in every game so far, and a big test for Orkney. Can they travel to Duffus Park and get something out of that? The other game, West of Scotland against Preston Lodge, 7th against 1st. That should be no problem for Preston Lodge, you would think. But that screams at us, doesn't it? Howe Fife against Orkney.
Yeah, and loads of things also with that game. Being a 12 o'clock kickoff makes it that much more intriguing as well. If it is the kickoff time, that's what I'm looking at here.
Yeah, due to the ferries, I think, I'd imagine.
Oh wow! So that gives another difference to this game, because it's a different kickoff time. It's a different way to prepare. For Orkney, that's going to be really challenging for them. Winning it's a great habit, and that's what Orkney are in at the moment. So again, they'll go into this game with a lot of confidence. But as you say, Duffus Park is for years has been a really difficult place to go. We've seen Howe Fife rise and fall in the terms of the way that the landscape is in the divisions, and they want to try and creep up the leagues again.
In National 4 last week, it was Dunfermline 8, North Berwick 10, Perthshire 28, Murrayfield 27, Ross High 7, Garnock 88, Strathmore 59, Stuartry 22, and Whitecraigs 28, Greenock Wanderers 7. So looking at the table then, Garnock at the top, played 9, won 9, 9 try bonuses, 346 points difference. What a season they're having, up from regional rugby as well. They've got the maximum 45 points. That's 9 points ahead of Whitecraigs in second place, who have won 6 of their 9. Strathmore, well, they're in third, 32. North Berwick, despite being docked 3 points, are in fourth position, 27 they're on. Stuartry in fifth, 25. Dunfermline sixth with 22. Then it's Greenock Wanderers in seventh with 19. Murrayfield Wanderers also got 19 in eighth. Perthshire in ninth place with 16, and Ross High at the bottom, just the one win for them, 11 points there. So Garnock clearly heading for promotion.
Yeah, their form's been brilliant. You just look at the gap between them and the teams below. So, although fixtures have been quite volatile in this division, They've won 3 games more than most of the teams in the division at least. So, and the points tally that they're putting up is impressive as well. And you see the top versus bottom. Garnock had to go away from home, 88 points to 7. They beat Ross High. So they're in a real rich vein of form at the moment and loving life in national rugby.
Could we see another Marr situation here? I remember Craig Redbath took Marr from Division 7 or wherever it was, right the way up to become Scottish champions.
They potentially could, but we we've already mentioned some teams that have tried it as well. Like Marr are a separate case, I feel. They've went up from regional rugbies in recent times, okay, and went up and become Scottish champions. And a lot of teams have tried it. I think off the top of my head, Hawick Fife tried it, and a bit closer to home. In times gone by, Bigger and Peebles have tried it to come from lowly regions in rugby and throw money at it and not go up. So obviously there's a different change in culture at Garnock, but they're having a great start, terrific start to life in National 4. So, you know, if they can continue that momentum, then great. But they'll obviously want to climb as high as they possibly can. It's making it sustainable is a difficult thing. So the further you get up the league, the more difficult it is to pick up victories.
Well, this week in National 4, it's not a bad fixture to start off with. Garnock against White Craigs, first against second. White Craigs with those 3 defeats, but they'll have nothing to lose going to take on Garnock on their home patch. Greenock Wanderers against Strathmore. Murrayfield Wanderers versus Dunfermline. North Berwick against Ross High. And Stuart versus Perthshire. And that's just about it for today on the Scottish Club Rugby Podcast. Don't forget Rugby Radio on Saturday. That's coming from Riverside Park. The border derby between Jedforest and Selkirk. Absolutely vital game for both sides. Will we get a repeat of the high-scoring 100-pointer from earlier in the season? Probably not, but both teams like to throw the ball about. We'll have live commentary of that one with Dale Clancy. Nice to have you back, Dale, after your flurry into Super Series rugby. So great to have you back, Henry. You'll be joined by Robin Purdy in the commentary box. We start at 1:30. We'll be on air for 3.5 hours with score updates throughout the afternoon from across Scotland. We'll also be having interviews from the Hawick 150th anniversary dinner, so look forward to that as well. Stuart McFarlane will be involved with that. There'll be TV highlights on Borders Rugby TV of both Jedforest and Selkirk, and also Kelso versus Hawick on Sunday. And check out our website at rugbyradio.co.uk for all the information that you need on the 50 clubs playing National Club Rugby in Scotland this season. If you want to get in touch, it's podcast at bordersrugby.net. But from Dale Clancy and myself, bye for now.